With being part-time studying for this test, I made what a dentist would make in like 3 or 4 years in this summer. Multiple millions in profit my senior year of college.
Did you tell your parents you had all these millions of dollars
No.
when you were in your early 20s?
I didn't tell them. I bought a condo on the Hudson River. I bought a Maserati. He has to be doing something illegal. Drop shipping is a waste of time. It's a great way to prove concept, which is what we did. But like, we need to brand this. We put an insignificant amount of money into the business, maybe $10,000. But the $10,000 every day would turn into 30 or 40,000. If I peaked in life at 21, if I can't get that for the rest of my life and career, like, that's fucking scary.
Welcome back to my channel. Welcome back to the podcast. The name of the podcast is Rise, Real Life Stories of Accomplished Individuals. Thanks for coming back. This is, for those of you who saw the first one, this is now the second interview. The first one was with Valeria Lipovetsky, my wife, and this interview is with Daniel Snow. Daniel, thank you for being here. Thank you for allowing me to interview you, knowing that this is the second time I'm doing it. So thank you. I appreciate it. Let me just jump into exactly who you are to provide context to the audience. So I have to read it because your career at the age of 29, you've done more than probably most people that I know. So let me just get into it. So Daniel Snow, an accomplished entrepreneur and CEO of the Snow Agency, which he recently sold as he casually spent over $100 million for his clients. He's also the founder of Rap TV, the largest hip-hop community in the world, with over 45 million followers across own social channels, and generating over 4 billion impressions a month. Without any loans or funding, Daniel generated over $50 million in 3.5 years by launching and scaling numerous e-commerce brands, which he eventually ended up selling. With this extensive knowledge, Daniel created the Snow Agency, which is a performance and social media marketing agency that is revolutionizing the e-commerce landscape for D2C brands. And as I said before, all of this at the age of 29. Daniel's been featured on Forbes and Business Insider. Dude, like, that's pretty crazy. I mean, you're 29, you've done all of that. So
actually, you could only condense it, but there was like 6 years you missed.
Maybe half my career missed.
But it's too much. The bio would be a little too long. But this is the most important stuff.
So again, going back to it, you're 29. Look, when I was 29, I was probably starting my first business, living in a basement apartment. This is by no means anything like a basement apartment where we're located. This is your place. So at what age did you start? Because to have done everything that you've done, $50 million in revenue across multiple direct-to-consumer, e-commerce brands, selling the agency, which you're still the CEO of, to my understanding.
No longer the CEO.
You're no longer the CEO. Okay. So, you've done all of these things. Rap TV is a phenomenon that I'm aware of. I think you just crossed like 11 million followers just on Instagram alone. Yeah. You and I have talked about that business, and you do a lot of brand deals there. Obviously a very niche community, but huge and powerful. Again, like, at this age, like, at what age did you actually start doing all of this?
I started at the age of 19, which I feel like for today, like the Gen Z kids, there's like so many of these young kids that are accomplishing amazing things, but just aging myself, that was 2012 when I started. So this was, early onset of just like kind of like social media as we know it. Like at this point, it still wasn't the norm even for everyone to have an Instagram yet, or everyone to even be on social media, I would say, generally speaking.
But you started Rap TV again when? In 2000?
No, so my entrepreneurial career started December of 2012. That was when I got into social media. Rap TV was started in 2017.
So that's what I really want to get into. So let's go back. So we've talked about your accomplishments. Again, super impressive. I can't say enough because I've also been in this industry for quite some time. There's a lot of overlap in what you and I do, and to have as many engaged followers as you do with Rap TV, because that's your kind of like forward-facing, like public-facing business that you can really see through the metrics. The agency is a whole other thing. but from what you can see, it's extremely impressive. So I want to go back and I want to understand. So tell me, let's start with like where you were born. Like what was the where are you from? What were the conditions and to which you kind of came into this world?
Yeah, I was born in Manalapan, New Jersey, which is central, just pretty much suburbia, New Jersey. And yeah, my parents, I'm first generation, so both of my parents were born in Israel.
Okay.
My mom is an occupational therapist and dad is a aerospace engineer, so two very conservative Israeli parents.
So your dad's a scientist. And what did you say your mom? Oh, she's an occupational
Therapist.
So she's like, okay, she's like in the medical field.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
And
Not entrepreneurs.
not entrepreneurs.
All right.
My dad, I think growing up, he always mentioned he had a lot of entrepreneurial ideas, but I think the conservative side of him held that back. So yeah, it came from two very conservative parents that entrepreneurship was definitely not, I would say, something that excited them to have one of their children do.
But before we get there, because we'll get there, because I think there's a lot of similarities, especially in the immigrant story. So your parents were both born in Israel, but
Yeah.
you were born already
In New Jersey.
In New Jersey.
Yeah.
So how old were your parents when they came to America?
My mom was 26, I believe. She came because she married my dad. And my dad moved when he was pretty young, under the age of 10, but he was back and forth to Israel.
Your dad was already in America. When
Yeah.
you met your mom. Okay, so they came over here. So, like in my case, my parents came in when they were in their mid-30s, and they were always like strapped for money. They were always, the immigrants trying to make it, trying to just, get to that next stage, trying to feed their kids, working like odd jobs and stuff. Were your parents in that situation? Like, I guess what I'm trying to ask is, would you say you came from like a middle class, lower class? Like, were you guys well off?
I would say like upper middle class.
Okay.
But it still was that sort of mentality of like, we need to be mindful of money. I think money was still a conversation topic in the household. I was blessed and fortunate enough to like have a lot of the things I could ask for as a kid, and I had a lot of luxuries. I went to sleepaway camp, Cincinnati. I played on multiple competitive sports teams across different sports. So like, but at the same time, it's not like, oh, we could just go to vacation anywhere we want. We could eat at whatever restaurant we want. So it was still a thing, and they were incredibly hard workers. But it wasn't a thing where we could just like have any luxury we want without thinking about it.
Okay. All right. Okay. So like, what was it like? What was it like growing up basically in this environment? Like, did you have siblings?
I have an older brother and a younger sister. They're both in Miami.
Okay.
My brother was my partner on the agency as well.
Okay. Okay. And so what kind of pressure like were you guys under in terms of what you would do professionally? So when you're growing up, your parents are obviously, they're both professionals in their respective fields, which is, a very different route, right? There's like this, there's on a high level, two sides of the coin, right? There's the entrepreneurial route and then the extremely professional route, highly educated. So did you have pressure from your folks to go on? I'm talking about before, like, you were even considering what you wanted to do for a living. Like, I condition my kids to be entrepreneurs, as an example. My kids are, they're really young. How are your parents conditioning you? Were they like, school, you got to go to school,
Yeah.
School's the way. That's the way. Like, that's,
since, age 5, it was you either get an A or, that's a failure sort of mentality. So definitely going down the conservative route, and like having a job was kind of the only route that I guess I had it, like that was the only route that they wanted for me at the time.
And so they were pushing you down this, like, you got to go to school. Like,
Yeah.
There was no question about when you're done high school, you are going to college. Like, growing up, there was no even doubt in anyone's mind. That's the way it's good. Is that the way it played out?
Yeah. It wasn't just you're going to college, it's you're doing this job.
Oh, wow. Like that.
It was like multiple options. I mean, essentially what happened was, going into college, like many 16, 17-year-olds, I had no idea what I wanted to do, right? It's like, even looking back, you can't expect a 16, 17-year-old to know what they do. I know many adults, they still don't know what the hell they want to do.
Dude, I still don't know what the
Yeah,
hell I
there-
want to do. Now,
there you go.
now I'm a
There-
podcast host, right? Like,
There,
so who knows?
there you
Yeah.
go. So it's like actually insane to expect 16, 17-year-old kids to know what to do. I knew that I was one of those kids, like entrepreneurship and being an entrepreneur was something that was just innate to me, something that was always in my blood. Like it was just how I'm wired. And so therefore it's like, what does an entrepreneur do? Like I wanted to do business as a major, but my parents pushed back on that. Essentially gave me two options. Like if I want to go to a business school or, you know, any of these prestigious schools, like I have to take out my own loans and pay for it, which is like daunting once again for
Yeah.
a 17-year-old kid. Or I did early decision for dentistry and medicine. So I got into the accelerated program for dentistry and to be a doctor. And
So you were so academically you were very strong to get into dentistry of any kind.
yeah. I would say my grades weren't as good. I was in all honors AP classes in high school. Like my grades weren't necessarily phenomenal as compared to like getting into the
Yeah.
stuff I got into, but I scored extremely well on my SATs. So point being I'm trying to get to is like so they gave me that choice because I had an early decision. I got a full scholarship for medicine and dentistry. So they said you can either go to this school that I didn't want to go to and become, you know, go to dentist route, or, you know, take out hundreds of $1,000s worth of loans and figure it out. And we'll buy you a luxury car.
Oh, so
too.
it's like, and they're bribing you
and
too.
we'll take care of, you know, the financial like
that's
concerns
tough.
in college.
You know, I think
So like you know, and that, but at the end of the day, that's what allowed me to launch my own business in college, was because like I knew they wanted what's best for me, and they knew that like I shouldn't have to get quote unquote distracted in college throughout the work week with a job. So they paid for my food and stuff like that
while you were doing
while I was in college.
while you're doing right, but you were doing already business in college.
Well, I started in college my sophomore year, but point being is I probably wouldn't have had time to even start that if I had to do a job like many other kids in college.
So I'm trying to understand. So your parents were supportive of your entrepreneurialism.
They weren't supportive of it because once I was trying to get to that.
Okay.
But the point being is that like the decision to go that route, I ended up going the route of being in school to be a dentist, and I had the full scholarship and car and financial support from my parents. Therefore, when an opportunity came to me, which the opportunity being my friend from high school, I saw him during winter break in college. He told me he was making $45 a week on Twitter at the time.
Sorry, $45 a week, and that was enticing to you at
That
45.
was extremely enticing. I was like, I can't, because they were financially supporting me, but like I wasn't being, you know, reckless with it. I wouldn't take their money and spend it at the bar with my friends.
So you
I
needed to
wouldn't
make
take it socially. Like it's like to eat, to survive. Like I
you
would
needed
do
to
that.
make money for discretional stuff because you felt bad like going out, let's say drinking on your parents' dime.
Exactly.
Okay, got it.
Exactly. And I knew they wouldn't accept that, which is understandable. So I was like, oh, that's amazing. You can make money on your phone. That's on your own time. Like, that's insane. This was 2012. This wasn't like how you see it now, where it's like all these kids making money and making YouTube videos about it and come learn how to make money on, like, this did not exist.
This whole like thing is a recent phenomenon, but I don't want to get too off topic, but I think a lot of it is a flex with these kids just going out, you know, and you know, shouting how they're making all this money doing, you know, YouTube or any other kind of like affiliate stuff or whatever, or crypto at this point. But okay, let's get back. Okay, so you're in college. He's making. How did he make $45 a week on Twitter?
So growing an audience, and at that time sending your audience to various affiliate.
So affiliate links. Affiliate links were within the terms and conditions on Twitter at the time?
Yeah. It's just sending to a website, essentially.
Well, but it's got affiliate code on it. So I know that like Facebook, for example, doesn't allow it.
Yeah. So no, this was early days of Twitter, 2012. Like,
right.
There was
They eventually
it was Wild West at that point.
They eventually banned affiliate links, I believe.
Yeah, Twitter, and then ultimately Instagram. Ended up creating even a whole affiliate network, an affiliate company that lived on top of like social, which I'm going off topic now, and that's why I ended up shutting that company down. But yeah, affiliate links you could do.
Okay, and so were you were you kind of at odds with your parents because at this point they're saying
Yeah.
to you like, hey, look,
Yeah.
you're going to do this. So look, I think like from what I'm hearing, I think the biggest thing for you to overcome is that you've got these conservative traditional parents who are telling you have to be a dentist. And it's funny because when you say that, you have to be a dentist, I think it's like a Jewish dad thing because my dad was
Really?
also, he was like, you're going to go to school, you're going to be a dentist. I heard they make $500K a year. Like that's
Yeah, I mean,
that's
they
the
make good
dream.
They make good money. They work
Yeah.
for themselves. But also, it took me a while to get to the point. Once I started making money online, I wasn't initially like, that's it, my life's changed. My decision changed. The inflection point was, I started my sophomore year, summer going into my senior year of college. I was studying for the DATs. I was going to the library every day. And I created that platform I just alluded to, Caffeine Digital. It was essentially a self-serve ad platform for creators and influencers, theme page owners mostly, to monetize their audience. Mostly it was all affiliate based. And that summer we launched, and that summer I was like, I made, with being part-time studying for this test and like being distracted, I'm like, I made what a dentist would make in like 3 or 4 years in this summer. Like,
Really?
yeah.
How much money are you talking about? Can you say?
That summer, we made over like $1 million.
Wow.
That year made a few million, like multiple millions in profit. My senior year of college,
How old were you at this time?
21.
Okay. So you're 21, you made a couple of $1 million with your brother, right?
No, not my brother wasn't involved yet. With someone I met on a bodybuilding.com forum.
All right. Okay, so you make a couple of $1 million.
The miscellaneous internet marketing thread.
Yeah. Okay, got it. You're 21 years old. You made a couple of $1 million. You're in college. You're studying dentistry. How were your grades at this time? Like, I can't imagine you're paying too much attention to your grades.
My grades were good up until my senior year of college, where I decided I'm not going to be a dentist. Like, I'm just going to finish school because I did 3 years. I have a full scholarship. I'm just going to do it. So I did like bare minimum. I still ended up finishing magna cum laude, which is like over a 3.7.
Well,
but
good for you.
I got my first like C-. I think my last class of college, microbiology, was probably the hardest class in college. The strictest teacher. I missed 2 tests because I was like flying somewhere for business and he didn't care. And
Sure, you didn't care.
point being, he didn't care.
Why would he?
Yeah. Point being is on the day of the finals, I took like 4 tests for this class and I barely studied. I'm like, I'm already at graduation. I'm like, did I even graduate? Like I feel like I might fail this class. And it's still to this day, I feel like I did probably fail it. He gave me a C-.
But do you like? Okay, so hold on a sec. Let's back up for a second. This is really interesting, but it's very uncommon. Like you were able to. I want to dive into a little bit about how you scaled this, and I don't see for me because I'm really familiar with what you were doing because I've been in various iterations of similar types of businesses throughout my career. So I don't want to dive too much into the business side of it, although it's just interesting for me personally. I want to stay more on the. Not more, but I want to make sure we include like the social aspect, not the social, but like there's the personal aspect of like what's going through your mind. But on the business side of this thing, how are you able to scale? So you're studying and you're scaling to get to like $1 million to $2 like whatever, a couple of $1 million in a year in whatever revenue, profit, whatever it was. In order for you to do that, you can't be doing this by yourself.
Profit, but
that was profit.
I had a.
So what did your team look like at that point?
I had a partner. He was more the technical component. He was setting up the the landing pages, the technical stuff, like the coding, because we had it was on a platform. And my job, we both identified opportunities that we can bring onto the platform from an advertiser's perspective, like what are new products or whatever that might work for our customer base. Mm-hmm. And then my job was really to market our platform to the affiliates, get affiliates on, to generate revenue.
The theme pages,
but also celebrity. We were working with celebrities too.
I had a similar business in 2015.
Okay.
So I get it. It was on Facebook. Yeah.
So we started working with actually a lot of celebrities.
Sorry, but how many people are in a company that makes $2 million in profit? How many like?
It was $3.5 million in profit, I think, that year. But we had no full-time employees. I think we had like 3 or 4 affiliate managers, people that managed affiliates.
Other college kids?
My brother was one,
Okay.
so he started
Yeah.
as an affiliate manager.
Okay.
And a few, and then I thought about it, and I said, like, what's the highest leverage person I can have for an affiliate manager? Is people that have influence in this community that I'm trying to get to. So I found the most influential people that had the biggest followings, that people essentially emulate and copy whatever they do to get them as the affiliate managers. So now their job was to, because they were posting the ads on their social followings, that was proof of concept, right? This guy's making money on this. How is he making money? Now that guy that they're trying to emulate, and the community is always kind of looking at that, is now saying, oh, you can make money the same way I do. You just join this website. So I had a few people like that within the community. And yeah, so we had like 4 affiliate managers, and that was really it.
What were your parents?
It was all commission based.
What did your parents? Okay, did you tell your parents you had all these millions of dollars? When
No.
When you're in your early 20s?
I didn't tell them.
Until when? Do they know now? I'm guessing they know now, right?
I think they have an idea at this point.
Okay.
Anyways, I mean, I don't know. They definitely didn't. I definitely had a lot of, like, at this age, I had a lot of existential crisis, and I had a lot of spite, because
Spite towards who?
spite towards kind of like everyone around me, in the sense that, like, there was no support from, like, friends or family or anything. So I had a big chip on my shoulder at this age.
When
So-
you say spite, like you felt resentment towards them because
I felt like
you didn't
like
get
a little
help.
like resentment, because it was a constantly, like, feeling of, like, control, like, you need to do this, like, what you're doing is bad. So
Really?
therefore I didn't feel comfortable sharing how good I was doing.
Why did they think it was bad? They thought it was like some
They just
sneaky.
didn't understand it. This was 2012, 2014. They just didn't understand it. They didn't understand it.
They thought it was sneaky internet stuff. Like
Yeah, they just
it was-
didn't. They just
right.
didn't get it. They're like they
But-
had zero understanding.
But the proof, right? But if you needed that
How
affirmation,
can all this pop, right? My senior year of college, I bought a condo on the
Right.
Hudson River. I bought a Maserati, all this stuff. It's like, it has to be doing something illegal. You know what I mean? No, you get it. I was like,
Yeah, no, I get it.
Immigrant, Israeli parent, like, they just didn't get it. They just did not
Okay.
understand.
Okay.
And so throwing away my life, so to speak, right? Because I made an early decision at the age of 17 to be a dentist. Throwing away my life was the worst thing in the world. I was throwing away my life to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah, no, I've had similar conversations with my folks over the years, but no, I get that. So, I mean, at what point did your parents get on side? Because look, it seems to me, I see how passionate you are about it. I mean, in terms of like your family, and from what I can gather in speaking with you, it was important for you to get there, not so much blessing, but understanding and ultimately love, because you're going very far from what they wanted for you. And, as a father myself, and I look at my little kids now, and it's like, I hope that they are going to be okay and do it. So if they did something completely out of left field, which I perceived, even though whether it's true or not, but if I perceived it to be wrong, or I perceived it to be not what kind of I intended for them, I'd have an issue with it. And I can see that, again, in speaking with you, it's important for you. It was, and it probably still is important for your folks to be on side with whatever it is you're doing.
Yeah, I would say so.
Money's the prove out, though. At the end of the day, money's going to prove it out, where you're like, listen, like, mom, dad, like, this money's legit. No one's going to prison. Like, I'm doing everything legal. This is like a real thing that I'm doing. So what did that pitch look like to them? What did that explanation look like to them, where you're like, mom, dad, like, hey, this is what I'm doing. Let me break it down for you. Because, like, they're smart people, right? They're professionals, highly educated. So they can grasp the concepts when you're explaining to them about, like, certain, like, arbitrage and like all this stuff that you're doing. They'll get it once you explain it to them. So once you had that I'm assuming you had that conversation. You explained it to them. They're like, okay, this is how much money there is. And you're saying to your folks, look, this is my future. This is what I'm going to be doing. How did that conversation go? At what point did they flip and say...
So it was always like the sustainability of it, right? It might go away, which it did go away.
Which it always does go away.
It always does go
business,
away.
yeah.
And I think that once I did my second or third business at a really large scale, that was when they got more comfortable with it. But yeah, even still throughout, like, maybe until I was like 27, I was still like, okay, we can't make you be a dentist anymore. Go get your MBA. You need to go get your MBA. I'm like, what the fuck am I going to do with an MBA? Like,
right.
Like, I don't need someone to hire me.
I think from your parents, they're looking for Stability.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're looking for stability. I think I think people who have the mentality of being professionals, being employees at very high levels, they want that stability, and they would rather, instead of your career doing this, at various stages of your life, in terms of your income, and ultimately your safety, they want to see that nice kind of line, that nice progression over the years, that nice linear growth on your career.
Yeah, which I get it, right? All parents want, well, maybe not all, but like most parents want, I mean, I'm sure all, I don't know, what's best for their kids. So
But that linear shit would be kind of boring, right?
what was that?
That linear shit would be kind of boring for you.
Yeah, it's just not me.
Yeah.
So that's why, like, looking back to this point where, like, that I feel lucky and blessed to be where I'm at, because it's like goes back to like butterfly effect. Like, let's say I didn't have that simple, it was a simple conversation, but it's like, what you know. And if I didn't get started, right, if I missed that conversation, maybe waited for the internet and social media to progress, I don't know, at the age of 27 or 28, I'm already a dentist now. Would I have been willing to sacrifice my livelihood and my, the time commitment, time investment that went into it and everything else? Like, I don't know.
Probably not, man.
I don't know.
Well, why would you, right? Why would you give up?
Exactly. Why would I?
You would have been a dentist for the rest of your life.
Probably.
But you know what's funny
I
is
probably
like,
would have been miserable.
Yeah,
most likely would have been miserable.
It's funny because
I mean, I already had a messed up vision in my mind for how my life would go. Like when I'm like, okay, I'll be a dentist. I was already in that mindset of like, okay, I'll be a dentist. I'll make money. I'll take that money and I invest in real estate, and I'll build a real estate portfolio so I don't have to be a dentist. And me being a dentist, I already had a means to an end of being a dentist. So it's like clear that like I obviously never wanted to be a dentist. Like, so yeah, I'm very, very.
Did you have any jobs? Like,
blessed.
did you have any actual? Were you ever an employee at any point in your career?
Yeah.
Before,
I rolled
before
silverware
college.
at PF Chang's.
You rolled
for
silverware.
for a summer.
Okay.
I was the only person in the kitchen that was either that there was two type personas in the kitchen plus me. There was PF Chang's had a great, and this is awesome, they had a great relationship with like the prisons, so they would send a lot of people that got out of jail to PF Chang's to work in the kitchen.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of that, and then there was a lot of illegal kind of like people working on the job, like didn't have that. Then there was just me, working in the kitchen. So it was an interesting dynamic. So I did that. I worked at PF Chang's, and I also worked at Six Flags for 2 summers.
Doing what?
One summer, the first summer wasn't as bad. I was like, they had this ride that goes like this, like free fall or whatever it would call, and I'd be like on the video camera, like recording people.
Yeah.
So I did that for a summer, which was great. Actually, it was fine. But then the next summer, that company like shut down. I lost my job, and then this was the worst job of my life. I hated every day. The people at Six Flags or like whatever, Disney, whatever, you walk into the park, like, excuse me, can I take your picture?
Mm-hmm.
And that was me for a summer, and I was miserable.
But it taught you something, though. But yeah, but like I understand, and I had shit jobs like that too. But it got you out of your shell. Like it allowed you to be uncomfortable asking people to do stuff.
Certainly.
Do you think that helped you in any way? Like
I don't think it helped me anyway.
At all? So like when you kind of
No.
when you're soliciting somebody for a big contract or something, or you're working on something where you need to sell something, you don't think that experience when you were younger to kind of do something that's uncomfortable by asking people something as trivial as, can I take your picture? You don't think that helps?
I mean, personally speaking, I don't think that helped. And I get the point you're trying to make. I don't think it helped because I think that, once again, like innately, like I was always that type of person, like very extremely curious. I've always been extremely curious. So like going out of way to ask people questions, stuff like that has always been kind of like a superpower of mine. As well as I've always been, like I used to always love going to sleepaway camps just so I can meet new people, like sports, stuff like that, like very competitive in that nature. So it's like meeting new people, talking to them, all that stuff, networking has always been like something that I just always genuinely enjoyed. So this was more just like a frustration than anything. But yeah, I accomplished what my parents wanted, was to like make me understand and learn the value of money, right? I'm working my ass off in the sun to make $7.50
Yeah.
an hour. After tax, $6 an hour. I can't even afford, you know.
This was your parents' idea for you to go and work there?
Yeah, they're like,
This
you have to
wasn't-
get a job.
Okay, so that's good. I
They
mean,
forced, yeah, it's good.
that's very good.
Very good.
Because financially, you didn't need to, but they wanted you to do it.
Yeah, it's good. I would absolutely want to do the same with my kids.
Absolutely. Yeah,
So
I
it's
agree.
good that they did this, and it's good I did it because it taught me that, right?
We talked about. Sorry, I'm just going to jump in. We talked about.
And it grounds you, like, you know.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. Like you have to. I worked at McDonald's, man. You know, so
Yeah.
I get it. Yeah. You know, we talked about how this particular industry, anything like with what you do, because it's just very similar to what I've been doing in the last few years. Actually, what I do now with Valeria is probably the most stable thing I've ever done. You know, in the influencer space, but. You know, when we talk about that up and down, when you were in college, I'm assuming when, you know, you had those years when you'd make $1 million, $2, $3.5 million, it all went, at some point, some of this shit went away. And so, right, like you were saying, like there's instability.
There was actually no point where it went away. So
There was never any change in policy at Twitter?
There was, but I was always really fortunate to have like multiple things going on. So when the platform went away, it went away because my shift in focus changed to launching direct consumer brands.
So talk to me about the direct-to-consumer brand. So what was the first direct-to-consumer brand that you launched?
The very first one was a jewelry company that I launched with a friend of mine, his brother and his business partner, when I was still in college, called Eros, and it sold men's jewelry. And it did pretty well. You know, we were doing, I don't know, $200,000 a month in
Good
revenue.
margins?
What was that?
Good margins?
Yeah. But we had a really bad business relationship, and it didn't go well due to a lot of things. And still in touch with them, but it wasn't a great business relationship.
Yeah, it wasn't a good fit.
Yeah. So I then relaunched essentially an accessories company with my brother. And he was a dentist in the Air Force at this point in Louisiana.
Sorry,
So
who's a dentist in the Air Force?
My brother is actually a dentist.
Your brother's a dentist now.
Well, he's not a practicing dentist, but he finished orthodontist residency.
All right.
It's a story for another time. We'll be here all day if I tell all these stories.
All right.
So we launched it together, and he set up shop or warehouse in his garage in Louisiana, and we had success with that. And then one of my friends from college who actually got started in the whole online space, he was working for me. We decided to launch this company together called Goat Case.
Okay.
It's a phone case that like sticks to glass and wood. Take pictures with it, selfies, whatever, videos. And we just had this viral marketing idea. And our first 6 months, we did $10 million in revenue with insane margins. And
this is all based on media buys? Paid
at
media
this
buys?
point, zero paid. It was all like paid in the sense paying Facebook and whatever, Google. We were paying all social traffic, all through meme pages and influencers, and we had a massive reach doing. We were buying like 50 million impressions a day.
Wow.
On social. So we scaled that up, and it's actually crazy. I still see it as a thing, like on TikTok. Sometimes people tag me. It's like because right now, like, what's Gen Z? What Gen Zs right now are creators. They're making videos on TikTok. What inspired them? What was the first way they saw to make money on whitelist? A lot of them was Goat Case. So I still see these kids like making videos about Goat Case like 6 years later, which is pretty crazy. I would say it's also like really early days of how people were repurposing content with creators and UGC to leverage that in viral campaigns. I will say we were definitely one of the first people to do that, especially at the scale. We did, like, for sure. So many people copied what we did at that point. Anyways, and then right after that, we were building the team. We had a warehouse. It was chaotic. It was like doing everything in-house, which was the worst idea. And then we replicated that marketing strategy across other products, Twiddle products. We launched a shapewear brand. The shapewear brand did 25 million our first year. So we just kept doing that. And then, eventually we couldn't keep launching tons of different brands because it just what like was not sustainable. We realized there's like a capacity.
Why wasn't it sustainable?
I would say because we couldn't scale the team accordingly to be able to manage these brands. We had a tough time. I would say it went down to management. Ultimately, you have to keep in mind at this point, and I hate to play it off to this. I mean, I was 24, 25, and I told you, although I had tons of success with the platform, I wasn't really managing anyone. Mm-hmm. So this is my first, but this is what I wanted. I wanted to like have that experience building an organization, managing it, having mm-hmm. tangible products around me, warehouse, etc. And
so you wanted that. You wanted tangible products, and you wanted to sit in a warehouse like yourself.
I mean, yeah, I guess. I mean, I wasn't managing the warehouse, but like I meant that like I wanted like because I went from online where it was just like numbers like popping up and getting that rush. I'm like, this is not real. Like so, like I wanted to launch a consumer
you wanted
product
more of
company.
Not so much brick and mortar, but you wanted this direct to consumer, like touching physical goods.
Yeah, I wanted to own everything that went in it. So yeah, I mean, my partner was the one managing the warehouse, but like the point was, I wanted to get very involved with it. So I would say ultimately what stopped us from continuing to scale that out and launch more brands. Yeah, ultimately when you break it down, it came down to maybe a lack of management from maybe myself and my partners at the time, being able to identify talent and having the trust in people to be able to be the quote unquote general manager of multiple brands. So at this point, I was still too hands-on, and there was still trust from like an executive standpoint that I was having a hard time overcoming. There was a lot. Yeah. I mean, I like when I first started to now, like I've gone through tremendous amounts of growth.
Where would you be getting funding for all of these projects? It just sounds
zero
like,
funding.
But how's that possible? Like,
how do you profitable day one?
No, but how about for product development? Like you have to make these.
There was no product development. I mean, so the first 2 weeks of GoatCase, we drop shipped. First 2 weeks.
Got it.
And at that point, I was like, I got into this because I don't want to just waste my time like drop shipping to me is a waste of time. You're not building equity. I'm like, I got away from affiliate days to build equity, and drop shipping is a waste of time. It's a great way to prove concept, which is what we did.
Yeah.
But like we need to brand this. So, but those, our first 2 weeks, we already did a few $100,000 in revenue.
And where are you getting, again, this is all paid traffic? Because
it was all, we were paying creators. Like we put an insignificant amount of money into the business, maybe $10,000.
Okay.
But the $10,000 every day would turn into 30 or 40,000.
Take me through that. That's what I'm trying to understand. So you would put the money into, I mean, it sounds like
we would take the money.
It sounds like an arbitrage in the beginning.
It would, drop shipping ultimately is an arbitrage, right? Because owning a brand, and I would say what's most capital intensive is the products, the physical products that you need to project inventory.
But inventory specifically.
Yeah. Because you need to project it out ahead of time. You need to brand it. That you need to, and it takes time. It takes a lot. You have to store it. So yeah, that's where the money is, and drop shipping alleviates all that. So then ultimately it's just marketing it, your input in is your marketing dollars, output is the revenue. So if you can make that delta, that arbitrage, as you said, then day one you're profitable.
I know, but you make it sound like it's very easy. If people could understand how you do what you do to basically put in $1 and kick back $1.30, $1.50 or whatever it may be, that's not easy to do. There's the so the concept is easy to understand. That's the concept. Right.
But the skill set in terms of how to generate profit is, the creativity that goes involved, the rigor you need to have, the constant incremental changes you need to make. Yeah, I mean, all that stuff's for sure, but that's part of it. But the bigger part of it, I was just explaining kind of like why we didn't need a lot of money up front.
Right. Okay. Again, I'm just going back to your personal life here. So what's going on with you personally? Like at this time, are you like, what hardships are you facing? I mean, it sounds like it's pretty smooth sailing, to be honest with you. Like, you're continuing to scale, you're opening up these direct to consumer brands. You're eventually got the Snow agency where you took your learnings from the direct to consumer brands that the direct-to-consumer brands that you ended up selling these brands, right?
Yeah.
From my understanding from your bio. So you ended up selling these brands. You now have an agency consulting, consulting other e-commerce companies who sell product. It sounds like you just kept moving, right? Like again, you took all your learnings, you opened up an agency. So how did Rap TV is like, you took kind of like the publisher side, because like I guess you were working with a lot of publishers.
But also even going back a step, because you said you went over the personal side. The personal side actually wasn't as smooth sailing as the optics that you just made it out to be.
Because it sounds like everything is running great.
Business wise, it was. But I would say, and personally, I mean, relatively speaking, it was as well. But more so, along with the success that rapidly came a lot of like internal, like
so talk to me about that.
Because
do you think a lot of guys who would get to the levels of success that you had, and the progressively every year, it seems to me like it's growing exponentially. There's probably a lot of distractions. Having sufficient resources to get on a plane and go party on the other side of the world, and do all kinds of crazy and fun stuff. Like, was that ever a draw for you that you felt distracted you from your path?
So I gave context on like how I got into entrepreneurship and my kind of conservative background. So I was relatively extremely conservative with the money I initially made, because it's like I understood, I had the self-awareness to know this platform I have today is not going to be around forever.
Right.
And that was also the kind of existential crisis I had, was like, okay, if this doesn't, and maybe at the time, if I'm getting my sense of self, potentially my self-worth based on how people are perceiving me to be socially and all the things that go along with that, there's that existential crisis of like, okay, if that goes away, like what's going to happen?
What's
right?
left?
What's left?
Right.
So maybe thinking back, it was more like scarcity mentality more than that kind of like growth mindset. Whereas like I have that in mind. Yeah, I bought a condo, I bought this, that, but like I wasn't I wasn't that type of person blowing money at clubs, traveling nonstop without a care in the world. Like I was very mindful of. I was like in my head, I was like, okay, I'm making up numbers here. If I make $1 million this year, like I can spend $150,000 a year. I'm good for like 6 years. Like each time I do that, there's like that safety blanket. And like that's how I was thinking about things. So it took me relatively speaking, and my friends would make fun of me. They're like, you're like, the cheapest rich person I know. You're Jew. I am Jewish, but it was like that, there was definitely that fear of the unknown, fear of maybe having to be a dentist, fear of having to go back and get a job.
Hold on a second. You were already making millions of dollars, and you had this ongoing fear that potentially you might have to go back and be a dentist?
I mean, probably not being a dentist, but like I'm just trying to make examples. Maybe at the time, who knows?
Did you ever think that things would collapse to such a degree that you would have to go and continue your education or get more education or like become an employee? Or
I wouldn't
like
say I thought about it in the sense like I'm planning on doing it, but it was a fear in the back of my mind for sure.
So when you were...
It was a fear.
Okay, so every business that you had, it looks to me like you had a business, and while you were operating one business, you were already thinking or actually opening up and starting operations on multiple other ventures.
Yeah.
Because there are a lot of different ventures along the way.
Yeah.
Were you doing that out of a fear of failure and creating safety nets, or was it more out of I want more?
It was more so out of opportunities. And for example, I got into social media, and I can because I wanted to finish up on what I was about to say. Mm-hmm. I got into social media creating audiences. So the audiences never went away. I had a huge network of audiences that I owned on Twitter and ultimately Instagram. Then the platform came. The audiences were still there. So I had a team of people running the audiences, sending traffic to stuff on Instagram and Twitter. Once the platform went away, once again, the audience was still there. So I still had the audience accumulating over time. As I launched direct consumer brands, the audiences got even bigger. And at that point, that was when 2017, there was already audience. I was like, I identified the opportunity of Rap TV. So I took one of my pre-existing audiences and turned it into Rap TV or at Rap on Instagram. The rest of the accounts I owned on social media, I sold because I thought that was a distraction to me. So now I had Rap TV and my direct consumer brands. Rap TV was completely on the side, completely passive. I was spending close to no time on it. All my time was going into the direct consumer brands, as it should, right? They were taking off. They were incredibly time intensive. I gained like 40 pounds and I got way stress eating. Anyways, so I'm just giving context. Then once I sold my brands, we turned the brands into clients of ours. Rap TV was still there. So it was kind of like doing things with like having something on the side, not necessarily in an intentional way. Things just played out that way.
How do you?
But circling back on what I was about to say before. So there was a lot of fear of like initially, even though I did make millions, of what if this goes away? What am I going to do?
Yeah.
More importantly, how am I going to outdo what I already did? That was my biggest fear, because it's like age of 21. I'm like, if I peaked in life at 21, like the relative scale of like, you even read all like the dopamine and this and that, how your brain works. I'm like nothing is going to become as exciting or fulfilling as me, for me. And right, I'm the type of person that I get a lot of fulfillment out of progression, whether it be physical or work or whatever, self. And if I can't get that for the rest of my life and career, like that's fucking scary. That's really
So
really
was that
daunting.
driving you to continue to like open up these
For
new...
sure. That I would say that was the biggest driver. And it just kept happening, and I still do it to this day. Like I still outdo the stuff I did before when I didn't think I wouldn't say I didn't think I'd be able to do it, but like didn't know how I would do it. And that was my biggest fear. But then once after college, I essentially had no social life for 4 years. So once I had the money, I had the condo on the water. Mm-hmm. I became good friends with one of my close friends was a club promoter in New York City. He would pick me up, take me out to the city. I didn't have to spend money because I was a club promoter, and I was going out like way too aggressively. And I remember I even looked back. I had an Instagram post from like 2016, and the caption was like, "One oak on a Wednesday because I don't know what else to do with myself." And I was like, that was exactly how I felt. And I felt like really empty at the time because I had no one to relate to, right? My friends, my family, no one can understand like where I'm at. It's great now, like online, there's all these different entrepreneurship clubs and it wasn't like that at the time. So I felt like there was no one I could relate to. And now like all the friends I had were like wanting a piece, wanting to be involved, this, that. And it just was like a really kind of like empty.
So do you have a group of peers now, or do you still
For sure, yeah.
You do?
Oh yeah.
So there are other individuals who are kind of operating at your level, not only in terms of like absolute dollar figures, but mentally, because you
totally
just in talking to you, you seem like you are always on, like you're on. You are like, this is like you live and I don't mean it in a negative way. Don't misunderstand, but like you live and breathe this stuff in a way that people would envy that they could have the kind of singular focus and drive that you do. Like it's enviable. Like, most people, they have other things that they have to, and I'm sure you do too, but it's very impressive how focused you are on this. So you do have a group of peers, like other people that you can talk to about this.
I valued creating peer networks for myself, and I identified that at a really early age. So that's why I got involved in going to industry events, then creating my own friend circle. But the thing is, my friend circle of peers were like I confided in. Those were they were around the country, around the world. And then I joined EO Entrepreneurship Organization, where that was I think like 2017 or 18. Mm-hmm. That was my first kind of like peer immediate like in-person peer network where I could meet other entrepreneurs and stuff like that. You create your own forum. Then when I moved to Miami, I joined something called YPO.
I know YPO.
You know YPO?
I was in YPO for a bit.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Yeah, so YPO is incredible. I've one of my best friends I met through that, and just like constantly surrounded by people like that, and like ultimately I realized that is important to me, and it's also how I grow as a person.
And do you still, like the buddies that you had, let's say even before you went to college, who didn't take the entrepreneurial route, people who did, let's say, listen to their parents and became that proverbial dentist, like, do you still have connections with those people from kind of your early days?
I would say from high school, I'm friends with like two people, but like not in the sense where like, well, one of them I'm actually, well, what's interesting story. One of them still can kind of relate because the story I went back to, I was like, I had that conversation in the gym. This other kid was next to me. We went to the gym together and we tried doing some stuff together and we actually had some success, but like he wanted to create more of a personal brand. So now he's like a huge YouTuber. He has like millions of subscribers on YouTube. So we can relate to that.
So I mean, you were at that $45 Twitter conversation. That's
Yeah,
what
he
you're
was
talking about,
standing next to me.
right? So you guys kind of, I
We
mean,
left the gym and made Twitter accounts.
right, but then you
Yeah.
but then you took two different routes. I mean, you took the route you did, and he became a famous YouTuber.
Oh, it took a while, but like
Sure.
he tried creating his own vines. And like the point is, he knew he wanted to be the face. He wanted to be the creator.
Right.
I didn't want that at all. I wanted to just create businesses. I didn't care about being in my face being involved. Like, and he's amazing. He took his passion, which is basketball, and he's killing it. Anyways, going off a little off topic. College, I have like two people that I'm friends with, but like I would say different relationships than what I consider to be like now like my kind of closer circle of friends in Miami.
So
There's just less to relate to, I would say.
there's less to absolutely.
They're still my friends and I love them, and they'll always be like my best friends. But they're also not here. Maybe if they're here, it'd be a little different. But
Listen, I mean, I think things like ambition and drive.
I don't even think it has to do with ambition. I don't think ambition and drive is it. It's just like you're living a different world.
Well, I know, but it divides people to a certain degree, and
Yeah.
it's unfortunate that the friends you have when you're a kid or when you're in high school, they don't necessarily stay the friends you have forever
Yeah.
because people go down their certain paths.
I think that ultimately for me, because like I have friends, not everyone's an entrepreneur. I think it's the perspective you have on life and like if that changes drastically, it's hard to kind of like the way you see the world. If that goes so far apart, it's hard to kind of like
Yeah.
have something to relate
Absolutely. I want to talk about your personal life a little, if you don't mind.
to. Okay.
So, one of the things that for myself, kind of when I was doing my thing and when I continue to do my thing, but especially when I was, a much younger entrepreneur, I found socially, I mean, I'll just say it, I found women very distracting. So, look, you live you live in Miami. You have means. You go out. I've actually seen you a couple of times where you and I met up, and you were with not one young woman, but you were with a couple of girls. How does that play into this? Because I think it's just such an easy thing to get so distracted, especially in Miami with there being such a kind of culture of being social, partying, late nights, and just women in general. So how do you find that like balance? How are you able to say no to that? Because that's I think a lesson that a lot of entrepreneurs, young people who are younger than you, and I'll say it, like especially men who do get distracted by women. How were you able to in all of this keep kind of focused?
Well, I was in 2-3.5 year relationships. So obviously when I was in relationships was not a distraction, which is like, I would say even some of the most productive. Yeah. Cause women have always, when I'm single, are a huge distraction. So that's why I found when I was in relationships, like I felt more fulfilled because I'm, focusing on that work, what I really enjoy doing. And I mean, so now I've been single for a little under 2 years, and I definitely did not do a good job of balancing.
You didn't?
No.
Sorry, so no, but hold on a second. When you say you didn't do a good job of balancing, you mean that you neglected your social and personal and love life?
Sorry. I dated just like way too many, was
right.
actively dating
but
too many girls, which was distracting me and taking away energy and thought, and all this stuff away from my personal, which in effect ended up affecting the stuff I enjoy doing, which is like I'm really passionate about health and fitness and
Right.
all this type of stuff.
But did you find your business, or like the performance of your various projects at any given time, dip when
No.
you were distracted by?
I wouldn't say business necessarily. I mean, maybe they're, plus or minus 10%,
Yeah.
I would say, but nothing substantial.
So then my question to you is, how is it that you are able to maintain consistent business growth year over year, being a man in his 20s who is, those are your years when you go out and you socialize and you mingle with women as much as you do. How do you continue to grow and scale your businesses when you do have this distraction?
Yeah. Well, keep in mind, 7 out of 10 of those years I was in a relationship also.
But even that's distracting. I mean, when you're in a relationship, like relationships require,
It's distracting, but for me, it's grounding.
but they require your attention. Like
They
if
require,
you have,
they do require attention. There is distraction to it, but constantly chasing the next girl and
Yeah.
DMing and dating apps, that is more distracting by for me, tenfold.
okay,
Because ultimately, going back to what got me into being an entrepreneur, and even before that, sports and online gaming and all this stuff was I always loved that kind of chasing mentality. And then when it comes down to your love life, which is the biggest dopamine release in that sense, it became a huge distraction. I would say I'm at a point now where this year, 2023, I've been trying to remove, just focus more on growth of myself and removing kind of external validation. And I felt more personal growth and in turn business growth than ever.
talk to me about
And
this external.
it's actually super empowering.
Talk to me about this external validation. So it sounds to me like throughout your journey, even, again, I try to kind of connect things back to your younger days, but throughout, it doesn't sound to me like you were looking for this validation. Like you've always been doing this for yourself. Like this isn't, I know that you did mention that there were
business I did for myself. I was more so alluding to the dating.
Right. But I'm saying even on the business side, yeah, I mean, it was for yourself, but you did have that group of people that you wanted to, I guess, prove wrong because they weren't supportive.
No, I mean, the business was never for external validation. And like I mentioned before, I'm just an innate entrepreneur. That's just something I always need to do. And where do I get fulfillment out of? I get fulfillment out of growth.
Yeah.
Out of trying to, make something better, whether it's personally or business wise. So I get fulfillment out of that. That's why business wise, I don't feel like I need that validation. I don't need to scream it out from the rooftop. This is what I'm doing. Blah, blah,
And you don't. I've been on your Instagram, and you're a pretty chilled guy.
Yeah.
You're not out there flexing. And even when I run into you, you're just you're cool. That's a great thing about you. And I think in general, how important is it, especially in this culture? We're in such a culture, and again, I get culture shock all the time because at my age, just seeing the progress of how things have been going in terms of with social media and guys going online and doing all this flexing and showing it, how important is it for you to stay humble, and kind of what advice would you have for guys who are doing well? Do you think that if you're doing well, you should start really pushing this and showing people how well you're doing? Do you think that that's a positive thing in terms of helping you?
I think that at the end of the day, you need to be true to self. And I think that I'm reading a book on this kind of topic now, which is I think how people, need to go when they're not being themselves, that's when they're not humble to me. And it's almost they have, I'm reading in this book that covers this topic, instead of self-esteem, they have other esteem. So other esteem means you get your self-worth from external. The money you have, the success you have, the house you have, material, car, watch, etc. And when you're not humble, you're shameless almost in a sense. It kind of manifests itself in someone, then you're being someone you're not. And that to me is that's when I think about it, someone who's not humble, that's that. And yeah, I mean, there's a ton of problems that go into that when you're not being your true self, and you need your self-worth and self-validation from something external, because that's out of your control, and that's obviously going to ultimately lead to issues. So yeah, I don't know if I got a little off topic.
Yeah,
but,
you know, I find it a challenge, and I've always found it a challenge where as you progress, like, you know, professionally, like myself, you know, just people in general, as they progress, especially for men, they have this need to have like these kind of outwardly facing, you can call it props or whatever you want to call it, and it's always this balance between like for now, like even now, like when let's say I buy something for myself, and I'm asking myself, am I doing this because I truly I enjoy it, if like a watch or, you know, whatever it may be, or am I doing it because I want to prove something to someone else? And I'm always telling myself, you know, and it's actually gotten better over time, and with age, it's gotten better in the sense that I now truly just buy things that I enjoy, and I care far less. I care far less what other people will think of it, and I think that, you know, and I've seen that in you, and you're almost half my age, and the fact that I think you're far ahead of the game, and young people in general will be far ahead of the game, that when they do decide to treat themselves and buy whatever it is that they want to buy, they're doing it for their own pleasure and fulfillment because they appreciate whatever that thing is, if it's a nice car or a watch or a home. But you seem to do it genuinely for yourself. Like, do you think that's a big advantage for people to not buy shit?
I think I do it. I do buy things for myself. Am I also doing it partially out of like external validation and signals? I'm sure there's something that goes into that, maybe, right?
But that's not something.
I bought a white Ferrari. Was that for me? Yeah, I bought it because I bought it for me, and I'm not posting it on Instagram, jamming it down people's throat. Look at me, I'm cool, I'm successful. I bought it because I love it. But does it make me feel good when I get someone looking at me a certain way? Yes, that is external validation. But another really amazing book I read recently was actually one of the most profound books I've ever read. I have to read it like 3 more times. It's called Mimetic Desire. Do you know what that?
No, tell me about it.
So mimetic desire means, mimetic is imitation.
Okay.
From like the Greek word mimesis, something like that. So it's essentially like broken down into, as human beings, we learn and develop through imitation, right? There's actually proof that you start imitating when you're still in the mother's womb. And they found this out through the different, there was, you know, the different languages that people speak, like Chinese and English have different, what's the word, like different ranges of this. I forget the word for it. Point being is that like they found that babies that were like Chinese babies had different, whatever inflection of their crying than other languages. Yeah. Therefore, they were already imitating that while still in the womb. Right. Anyways, point I'm trying to make is human beings grow and develop from imitation. Therefore, your desires, that's the mimetic desire part, are all based on imitation.
Okay.
Unconsciously. So it's like, so it's like there's models, right? Like, what's my model? And this can go into a super long topic, but it's like your models are what the book says, freshmanistan and like celebrity, so meaning like people you can relate to, which is like what actually kind of like influences you more in a sense. And then like there's the stuff that's like out of your kind of like spectrum, and it's less relatable. So it's like the people then that I'm currently relating to, it's like if I am seeing what's you know, I'm imitating of like people then on my current status and like what they have, has that impacted what I want, you know, from maybe, you know, even a romantic standpoint, who I'm dating and how much I'm dating and maybe the things I want, physical things I want to buy, probably, especially if you're not thinking about it. I think it's just like being able to like be conscious of that is like ultimately what it comes down to.
And so this imitation, I mean, when you're referring this imitation, like you're talking about imitating, meaning like seeing someone have
a model is what the book. Yeah. So a model. So like there's different models and different form. You know what I mean? Give me an example. Model? You know, a model could be like a perfect example is social media. And that's what's really interesting in the book was like Peter Thiel, one of the first investors of Facebook. He was a huge proponent and believer in this mimetic desire. And what the book says he liked so much about social media was that social media is completely based on mimetic desire, right? Your wife is an influencer. Influencer by definition is a model. So she has 2 million followers or whatever on Instagram. What she does is she's a model to everyone who follows her. What she's wearing, what she's buying, her clothes, right?
Sure.
That's literally by definition influencing people to do that. And that's, could be, I mean, that's why there's like, there's obvious advertising where it's like, go buy this, but there's also a huge mechanism of marketing where it's less kind of apparent. Whereas like, in movies, they put cars in there and like,
absolutely.
So it goes down to that. There's just, it gets much deeper, but that's kind of like basic understanding of it.
Let me ask you something in terms of,
there's experts. So like Andrew Huberman is an expert.
Yeah.
So in like current society, it's like experts have influence. Experts now, Andrew Huberman is now a model of an expert. And now look, everyone in the world wants a freaking cold tub all of a sudden.
Yeah.
No one gave a shit about cold tubs
Correct.
3 years ago. Now everyone in the world wants a cold tub. Everyone wants to do, go in the sauna. Everyone cares about breathing and everyone cares about sleeping. There's multi-billion-dollar companies on sleeping. It didn't just go because of society went that way. It's because there's experts that society looks up to and says, this is in their science example there.
But there's science too.
No,
right?
no, but that's not the point I'm trying to make though. There is science. That's what makes proof concept. But like there are models that are people are imitating what they're saying.
And do you think that this is
that's just an example? Obviously, there's many other ways I can say that there's not science.
But let me ask you
something.
Do you think that these are distractions, like following these models and trying to essentially model your life after the things that you see that are being given to us by society, like with these cold plungers and like what to wear and what to drive and all of this? Do you feel that young people who are trying to make careers for themselves, especially whether they're entrepreneurs or they're whatever it is that they want to do, but they want to accomplish something meaningful, they want to kind of break out of the norm, do you think that following these models are detrimental to achieving goals?
I think that if you're not aware of stuff like I said, for example, like I did a podcast a few months ago and this kid, great podcast host, but like I was explaining something I was doing, and in the podcast, he was like, I want to do that next. Like, that's a distraction, right? Because you're what I said in that example, I was the model, and he was trying to imitate what I was doing because I gave a lot of. So the point I'm trying to make is that I think it can be a distraction for people who don't have self-control, and that's what manifests itself with all these kids on social media, and people make fun of it. One day they're a crypto influencer. Next thing they're selling who knows what. Next thing they're doing NFT, then selling a business course and creating an agency. Then it's like that's a distraction if you're constantly imitating what you deem to be a success.
Do you feel like on that topic?
And like that by definition is kind of like everything I just went through.
On that topic, in terms of distractions, and do you feel that one of the things that had a profound effect on your success is the fact that you kind of stayed in your lane, in the sense that
totally
you did go into other businesses, but I can kind of see the progression in the sense that you were working with publishers, social media, primarily social media accounts, right?
Totally.
But then you became a publisher because
I compounded over my career.
But you understood that publishing side of it because you worked with them. I mean, you were the platform that the publishers used to monetize. And then you became a publisher afterwards, seeing the value and seeing kind of the inside of that.
So my skill sets, while I was across maybe a few different verticals, I had so much success, I think, was because I stayed somewhat in the same industry, and my relevant skills, skill sets, and relationships were able to compound.
Right. And you were able to leverage all of those things, like your relationships, your skill set, into creating new things. So what do you have going on right now? So kind of where we're at, I obviously know about Rap TV. You and I have talked about that before. And I feel like there's a lot of similarities to what you're doing with Rap TV to my work with Valeria.
Media company. Yeah, we both, our product is audience. We're both, how can we maximize that?
Yes.
Ultimately,
yes. And monetizing it through brand relationships.
Maximizing that audience, like
Yeah.
making money.
Yes, and then Snow Agency, which you've sold and now you've stepped away from. You were the CEO.
Yeah.
Post sale, you were
still
CEO.
I still have a huge interest in it. I'm just no
Okay.
longer the active CEO. Like I don't have 8 people reporting to me. But I'm definitely still involved in the agency. I'm definitely still involved in some key clients, giving the team strategy and such. So yeah, current day to day is I'm the CEO of Rap TV. I'm still involved in a gut health brand. I created Chlora, but in a smaller capacity. And then I have my own kind of like real estate portfolio that is more just like a nuisance to me at this point. But
Well, it's more passive real estate. No?
it's passive, but there's just always issues that come about. Even though I have a property manager, it's like still a lot, right? I still need to make decisions. I still need to hear what I need to know what's. Yeah, there's just constant stuff.
Are these multifamily homes that require so much?
They're all multifamilies. 10 properties in it, but there's just issues, right? Shit breaks.
Yeah.
The tenant's doing something crazy. Like we need to evict the tenant. So there's just like stuff which is like, even if I'm not doing it, it's still taking, time in my brain.
Daniel, you've got so much going on. You can again. You're not even 30. I know you told me you turn 30 next week, right?
3 weeks.
3 weeks. So you've got so much going on, and I can only imagine that from when you wake up, your phone's going off, calls, messages, and whatnot. You're getting back to people. It doesn't sound to me like you're involved in like operations, deep operations. It's more you're delegating. Like you have people who report to you who are more operating. You're like the CEO, and you've got a COO or multiple people who do that.
I would say at this point though, because Rap TV was passive for so many years, like a lot of the upfront work that should have went on for a company our size wasn't necessarily done. And currently I'm doing a lot of deep work to do that sort of stuff.
So are you focused right now on continuing to scale Rap TV?
Yeah.
Is that where you see the biggest opportunity?
Yeah.
And that is
as the CEO, yeah.
And that is to continue growing that audience. You're serving from the bio that I read, you're serving billions of impressions a month. From that, like you're reaching a ton of people. And so you don't feel that those accounts are at saturation from a cultural perspective, in the sense that, the genre of music, the rap, the culture, like urban culture in general, you don't feel like you're already at the pinnacle? Like how many more fans are there globally for this kind of genre of music?
Well, that's why where the company is going is like, it's not just rap, as rap is our biggest brand by far, but now we have the same type of Rap TV brand for people to understand, in gaming and reggaeton and pop music and fashion. So trying to actually right now rethink of like a name of our portfolio of brands, but our vision is to create the best communities for Gen Z. So it's then going a step deeper is like, I see Rap TV as a platform now. I've like ultimately realized. So it's a platform where I can take personalities and launch them into brands. I can take, consumer goods and launch that into its own brand. And I think that and then, it's a platform to work with external celebrities, leverage our infrastructure and network to be able to create a great show together. And then the platform is leveraging our product, our audience, into sending them there to watch the show, and then getting brand dollars against that. So I think that when you just think about how fast can the audience grow, how much more is there, then that's a risk that's associated, which is like, we can't continue this crazy, the
rate of growth.
You can't continue that we've had, but the audience is still so under monetized and so under leveraged that that's where the opportunity is.
Talk to me about under monetized. So I guess this is more, I'm kind of picking your brain. When you say under monetized, you do have extensive brand deals with.
I wouldn't say extensive, like for a brand our size, like I think that we have brand deals, right? We have partnerships, we have all this, but it could just be a lot more thoughtful and a lot more,
so the
ticket size.
The monetization there, I think I saw you mention somewhere that a personal brand is more kind of susceptible to doing brand deals because it's a personal brand versus I believe yeah.
I don't disagree.
I don't remember if you told me that directly or if I saw it on somewhere, maybe a podcast that you were on.
Yeah, what I think, and is like leveraging, because I think that I think this is what I think. I think that people can typically have better emotional connections to people versus a brand.
But people don't have enterprise value.
Yeah,
they can't
exactly.
be sold.
So it's like, okay, how do we bridge that gap? Is getting people to represent our brand, and then we have that, right? We have our own personalities. We have our own emotional connections to our audience,
and which a lot of people like networks do, like news networks.
Exactly. Exactly. So we're trying to emulate that.
How else would you monetize, if you can say, besides, if it's not brand deals?
It is branded. So it's brand deals. So creating, allowing brands to be incorporated into our long form content that we're now creating. We just signed our first. So it's like, I see talent as two things. There's internal talent that we can grow internally and be kind of like faces of the brand. Then there's external kind of people that already have large audiences, like celebrities and really large influencers, that we can create a mutually beneficial relationship because we get brand association. We get that association from their audience. They get distribution to a bigger audience, which is our audience. And then they get infrastructure of us through sales and production. And then obviously brands want to be a part of that. So that's an easy way. And then it's being able to then incorporate potentially direct consumer products within our content, with our audience.
Your own direct to consumer products.
Then within that, to spin off into its own brand that's something bigger. And I think that like people who have done that really well is like, Fuck Jerry comes to mind. Like they're, what do you meme?
Do they have product lines?
What do you meme? Yeah. They have what do you meme? And then like a ton of games.
Right.
They're doing, their gaming department is substantially bigger in every sense of everything. They have more people, more revenue, all that stuff than their media company. Other, even who else? Like, I mean, even that's from a media company standpoint. From a person standpoint, Kylie Jenner, Kylie Jenner created Kylie Cosmetics, $1 billion, $600 million, whatever.
But exit. she has a lot of scale, and I often contemplate the whole product lines. And if you see the guys who are doing the people who are doing really well with products are people at massive scale. Like you've got the Mr. Beast, and now Logan Paul with Prime, and Kylie with Kylie Cosmetics, and Kim with Skims, and all that. But it requires that. Because the conversation that Valeria and I often have, we actually just closed down our brand.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we closed it down.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, we closed it down because it was taking about 30% of Valeria's time in terms of meeting with the clothing designers, contributing to the design and all the different things that she wanted to do with the brand, because she was it was hers and it's clothing. It's super relevant to her as a fashion influencer, and it was taking about 30% of her time. And when we sat down and we really thought about it, by putting her effort, by not only her time but her mental bandwidth into the content to continue to grow the audience. So we want far more scale before we even consider products again.
Yeah.
Because unless you're a Kylie Jenner or a Kim or somebody with that kind of scale, one influencer at Valeria's scale with a combined audience of 6.5 million people, it's not enough to carry a brand completely. We would need to get other sources of traffic, right?
Exactly. It needs to live on its own ultimately.
So we're just we weren't ready for it.
And there's a lot of bandwidth. Yeah, it's a lot.
It's a lot. And we said to ourselves, because we don't have the product expertise that you do, right? So we're developing the product expertise simultaneously. We actually set up a separate company, and we were setting it up completely separate.
And that's great. That's a hard decision to make. That's a big revenue stream.
We were doing it for over 3 years, and it was doing revenue.
It was doing revenue. That's what I'm saying. That's a hard decision.
But you know where the challenge is, and this is a little off topic, but the challenge is that, let's say, to make, I don't know, $250,000, right? You yourself know what's required to make $250,000 in profit selling product, even if you have an established audience in terms of logistics, reverse logistics, inventory, shipping, just everything, right? Or you do a $250,000 deal with a brand, and it's just all straight to the bottom line. It's whatever, 10 hours of Valeria's time, 80 hours of my staff's time. our staff's time. So
Totally.
it's just, you know,
I think when it goes down to bandwidth, it sounds like you made the right decision. Because like that's the because we're same business ultimately. It's like that's the flywheel. It's like product is audience. How do you grow a bigger audience? Is invest more time into content. Then if you get content, audience, then as you make more content and better content, audience grows. As you get bigger audience, then you make more money through brand partnerships. Then allows you to get more money to invest into content, which is what we're doing now. Allows you to get more audience, and then that's the flywheel. So,
yeah. So now you and I actually had a discussion about it, but we don't have to talk about it now. Now I'm looking into digital product. Hence my conversation with you yesterday when I called you. That was that, because right now the key for us is to create a product that doesn't actually require Valeria's time.
That makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense now.
Now you made that connection because we make that product, that digital product once, the one that we talked about yesterday, and now I have it, that asset, and now that asset, not only I can push, but I can present to Valeria's 6.5 million people, but that also goes to paid media buys. When you have a digital product and there's no COGS. Yeah. There's no EBITDA, there's no logistics. There's no logistics cost, and it just all goes straight to the bottom line. Then you can do media buys. Yeah. So even if your CAC, like your client acquisition cost, is 50% of the ticket, you're still good. Like it could be even 80% of the ticket, you're still making a decent margin. So now it's that digital product, which I think is kind of what we're looking at. But in any case, let's get back to you. This is an interview about you. Daniel, what's next? I mean, but what's next, like, for everything? Like, I think it's important that we discussed your background, and it's important that we discussed kind of how you got to where you want to be. And again, the whole premise of this is to really get into the heads of people who have done things like, who have done big things, and to understand how they got there. And I think like you've given us a really good understanding. But one thing I'll tell you is that the amount of value that we're able to create in this podcast and that we're presenting to people, the reason it's limited, and I mean that it's not in a negative way. It doesn't mean it's not a poke at you, but I feel that in speaking with you, you've got a natural ability that I don't know, like how many times you could tell this story that you could teach someone how to do this. So it's a compliment to you, but there are certain people who are born with what you know how to do. But let me ask you this, for people who are watching this, young people who aspire to achieve kind of similar levels of success that you have, if they're not born with this kind of innate intelligence, logic, work ethic, all of the things that you know how to do, like the whole package that is Daniel, how do they develop that? Like, what do they need to do? You talked about progress being your thing, and I really resonate with that statement, because progress is my thing. Like, I'm trying to get, more fit every day. And once you have kids, that whole progress thing takes off, because now you have other human beings where you're monitoring so it's an exponential thing. But how do you, for somebody else, if they don't have this like innate ability that you have, how do they develop it? Tough question?
It's a really tough question.
Well, because you got it.
Yeah.
So how can you tell people, how to get it if you already got it naturally? It sounds to me like you were born with it. I mean, you obviously continue to put a ton of work into it.
Yeah. I think a better thing, because it's such a broad question, like better was like, maybe it's like if the question is if people are set on becoming an entrepreneur, how do they get that? Is that the question?
I think it's if people want to succeed.
Want to succeed.
I think you and we have this biased lens of entrepreneur.
Okay, just succeed. If people
at whatever they do.
But then to me, the question is like nuance. It's like, what is success? Is success from a financial perspective? Is success from a just a social status overall perspective?
Let me rephrase the question. If people's ambition is far greater than their talent, what should they do, in your opinion? If you had a kid, if you had a son,
if their ambition is far greater than their talent, what do they do?
But they want to be successful. What do they do?
I think that I would say focus, curiosity, and ego would probably be the three things that come to mind. Curiosity in the sense that like you need to be and obviously working hard goes along with it. I shouldn't even have to say working hard because that's obvious. Like you have to work hard to do anything at a high level. So like curiosity is like that, like you need to be able to just like enjoy learning. And I think that like when people have even semblances of success, they like stop learning. And I think that the most common trait I see from myself and other incredibly successful people, not even in just business, even in sports, is that to me, that's a trend I've noticed is like they're forever learners.
Yeah.
I even remember I saw Coach K. I was lucky enough to see him speak at Duke through YPO. We had a thing, and he left. He's a coach on the court, and he's quote unquote a coach off the court because he's a professor. But himself, in order for him to be successful, he needs to constantly learn. And for me, that's how I feel the same way. Is like I need to constantly learn from a tactical standpoint, like social media. I have to constantly learn, adapt. As an executive, like CEO, I need to constantly learning more how to be better. So I would say like having that mentality of curiosity has come naturally to me, but I also have to work incredibly hard on it. So I would say like that's to me is like arguably one of the most important things. Ego is incredibly important, and I think that this doesn't get talked about enough because I have found some people that don't even have success to sometimes have the biggest egos. They prevent their ego from allowing them to say, I don't know.
Their ego prevents them.
Their ego prevents them to say, I don't know. Explain this to me. Their ego prevents them to going out, reaching out to someone and saying like, and asking for help. Their ego prevents them from, just those are examples. And I find even when people are successful, sometimes they stop doing that because then they get an inflated ego. But ultimately, it's like I find that, number one, whenever someone reaches out to me and they drop their ego and say like, these are my ambitions. Like I know I don't have it. Like they're just completely honest and truthful. Like I'll always at least respond. But there's so many people, and I remember in my early days, I think that like I had some ego that didn't like I should have reached out to more people earlier on and asked for help or reached out just to connect. And I think that it could have been ego preventing that. So I think like that doesn't get discussed enough is like ego preventing people, especially in their early days. Like it's especially now with social media, because it's like people have this perception of like where they should be in life because of social media and where they're at now, which gives them an ego, because if they are not as successful as where they think their peers are, then they're vulnerable. They have vulnerability to say I'm not successful, and like that doesn't feel good for some people.
And that'll lead to a lot of complexities, a lot of depression, a lot of
And what is it? Ego,
curiosity, obviously work ethic.
What was the third thing I said? I don't even remember anymore.
Well, the question was what happens if your ambition is far greater than your talent.
I remember I said curiosity, ego, and focus. So that was your thank you. That was it's been a long podcast. It's been a long day already. That was the going back to the first thing is like
we're gonna wrap up soon.
If you're not compounding in your skill sets and relationships, then you're spread thin on everything. You're constantly trying to chase the next thing. You'll never have success. Like that's it. Like the key to success, even like Warren Buffett said that from an investment standpoint, or even Albert Einstein, is compounding. That's not just in investments and that's like for everything, right? Like if you stay in the same industry, like you're able to compound, then you're able to achieve great things. I also don't think that gets discussed enough. And like ultimately that's focus. You can't get distracted from new shiny objects, which are just nonstop,
New shiny objects, you mean like the reward that you get, or new shiny objects like new ventures?
I mean, new shiny objects like, okay, my focus is to become the best, doctor ever. I'm just making this up. But now there's some kid on social media that says he's making $5 million a year selling crypto. Oh, now our real estate agent's telling me I could make $5 million and become a real estate agent. Now, I can make my own crypto coin. I can make this. That's
back
shiny
to
object syndrome.
staying in your lane, and hence you always
So
kind of stay
that's
in
why I
the
say
genre.
focus.
You know, one of the things, and we'll kind of conclude on this, but one of the things that I appreciated in our phone call yesterday, and I noticed something about you that it really resonated, and it gave me like kind of you actually gave me a business lesson by saying very little. So I had called you yesterday to discuss this new digital product that I was thinking about doing and to get your opinion on it in terms of how to proceed with it. And after I gave you this like extensive explanation, at the end of it, you just said, "Okay, got it. Let me think about it and I'll get back to you." And you would be surprised how much value there is in that, because to me, I knew you were listening intently. And the fact that you didn't waste your time or my time into just like, because you didn't have any more questions, because I was pretty thorough in my explanation to you. And the fact that you didn't take any extra time or anything, you were polite about it, but you were just like, I got it. Let me sit on it a little bit. I'm going to get back to you as soon as I can. And I think that lesson in being efficient, even in the way you communicate and in the way that you talk and in the way that you think, being efficient in your thoughts. It's like, okay, you downloaded everything, you got it. Now you're moving on to the next. You politely gave me your response. I'm happy, you're happy, and it's just a very, very efficient use of time. So you gave me a lesson yesterday without even knowing you did.
Awesome.
So thank you.
Glad to hear that.
Daniel, thank you again. Again, I really appreciate this. I can't wait for people to see this, and continued, good luck, and congrats on your success.
Thank you.